Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Unleashed with Carrie. Today I have my friend Ben Pugh. Before I even get into introducing him, I want to let you know we are recording on Zoom, and Zoom is trying really hard to keep up with the demand because everyone is running their life on Zoom right now. Schools and businesses and play dates and social dates, and everybody's on it. And I think we're all seeing the internet struggling to keep up with us, and also the platforms we're using. So if we go in and out, if we lose each other, we're just going to do the best we can to keep it rolling. And sorry if you miss something here and there. So I'm here again with Ben, and he's an expert when it comes to working with teens and their parents. He coaches parents on reconnecting with their teens, keeping teenage struggles in perspective, and managing their own mental and emotional health as parents. He mentors teens on building resilience by embracing struggles and adversity, and teaches them how to develop an empowered mindset, along with how to use tools to manage their own mental and emotional health. At the end of the episode, I will have him tell you where you can follow him, get in touch with him, and I'll drop all the links in the show notes as well. Ben has just so much to share. We connected randomly through some Facebook group, and we've been touching base ever since. And I'm just really glad he's here to give you all his words of wisdom today. So Ben, hi there.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, I'm excited. It'll be great.
So now you coach parents and teens, which is just like, this is the premier moment for us needing that, right? We're all home together. We're in a house together. We've got exceptional stress. Everyone has stress right now, even if, they're not showing it, especially the kids. They might not be showing it, but it's there. But before we even jump into that, can we rewind to school? What was school like for you?
I hated school. School was like my least favorite part of life until I went to college. And then I was like, okay, it's a necessary evil. But as a elementary school, I was a chunky kid. I got made fun of. Like, my last name was Pugh. It did not take much creativity to come up with ways to mock me. I hated it, and I didn't really fit in well, and I struggled. I ended up being in special ed classes because as a behavior problem. I remember getting tested, and the doctors were like, "There's nothing wrong with your kid. He's just lazy." And so to me, school was this constant reminder that I was lazy. There was something wrong with me. Like, it just, it was like sending me all day to be tortured at this place where I felt like I sucked at school. And so I hated it. I don't know. Do you want to hear about all the times I got suspended or?
Oh, we really want to hear about that, but I have a question first. Did you feel like you were lazy?
Maybe to some extent. So I grew up on a farm, and like when it came to just physical work, I could outwork anyone. When it came to school, I didn't see the value. I didn't want to invest in it. And so I guess I did think I was lazy because that's what other people told me. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm lazy. But now I realize, okay, I just wasn't engaged in what they were doing. And I did have the occasional teacher who like knew how to get me engaged and knew how to like harness my attention. And those were few and far between. But those were the moments where I'd be like, okay, I am smart. I can do this. But at the same time, sometimes it would reinforce this belief that, okay, maybe I am just lazy because I do it in this class and not in this one.
I've had so many students over the years tell me, "Oh, I'm just lazy," or "I didn't do that because I was lazy." But really, when we dig into it, it's that they didn't know how to get started, or they were struggling to get started because they felt like they were just going to screw up, or they were lazy because someone else told them they were, and they just thought it was true, when really it's just kind of like you said, they aren't getting engaged, or they don't know how to engage themselves. But more often than not, I find that kids aren't actually lazy, even though maybe that's the behavior that we are identifying it, their symptoms as.
And I think far too often, I've been in education for the past 10 years. I was a principal for the past 5 years. I think too often, like, we give kids the easy out of just saying that they are lazy. And too often we think that our students or our children should be motivated to do all this stuff. Like, we don't understand motivation as well as we think we do. Like, I don't do things unless there's a benefit for me. Like, I don't go into work without a paycheck. I don't go, like, I went jogging this morning. It's not my favorite thing to do, but I'm motivated because I feel like there's a benefit. And I feel like, especially in education, we have become so disconnected from our students that they don't see any benefit. And this excuse that we've given them of being lazy, it isn't really them being lazy at all. It's just we as the adults aren't finding the proper motivators. We're not giving these students something to do. We're not helping them find the benefit. And so I think lazy, it's a term way overused. And as adults, we need to take responsibility for what we can and help connect our students, help connect our kids to that benefit that will motivate them to do what we want them to do.
That is so well said. I say something similar, that a lot of times kids don't see the relevancy of
Yeah.
what they are being taught, or why they're learning it. And their brains are different than ours. They can't project, 6 months into the future, really. And they don't even have a picture of what the future is or could be, because all they know, it really is their small circle of mom and dad and neighborhood and friends they go to school with. Like, they don't have a global perspective, and to some extent they can't have one. So I
Yeah.
love, like, let's just take lazy off the table. Don't let it be an excuse, and start working on developing that relevancy and showing them the direct benefits of what they're engaging with.
Yeah. Just a quick story to support that and throw in there. A few years ago, when I was a teacher, I had a student who was struggling in math, struggling in English. I was his English teacher, and me and the principal had coached football together. And he approached me and he said, "Hey, we're going to have to take this kid out of jazz band and give him remedial math in addition to his other math." And I fought tooth and nail. I was like, "Why? We're going to take away the kid loved to play the saxophone." And I was like, "You're going to take away the one thing that he loves to do." Like, this kid, he hates math, he hates English. He's not going to go get a job where he's doing math and English, but I could see him go sit on a corner somewhere and say, "Hey, throw money in my saxophone case while I play." And I think far too often we want to force our kids to fit this mold, and we don't we don't trust in our students and our kids' ability to succeed at anything. We think, oh, if you don't succeed at math or English or whatever, you'll fail at everything. But really, if you can be super good at one thing, that's good enough. You can find ways to monetize and survive if you have one really good skill.
Yeah, absolutely. Instead of, like, just squeaking by in, all 6 or 8 subjects or however many you are taking, like, throw yourself into the ones you're good in, squeak by enough that you can read and write and do basic math, right? But you don't
Yeah.
have to be able to write a competent literary analysis essay if you're going to, I don't know, start a online saxophone school. Like, you need
Yeah.
to be able to write some basic copy, but
Or be
it's
making
just.
enough money that you can hire someone to do that for you.
Exactly. And know that that's an option, to hire someone to do it for
Yeah.
you. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to reiterate to everyone listening that Ben now is a, teen parent relationship coach, but I don't know if you picked up on it. He said he was a teacher. He said he was a principal, but yet he hated school and he was in special education classes. So here we have someone who was struggling in school. He said school kind of sucked for him, but yet he went into education and is empowering our teenagers and now their parents to be successful in this world and to love life. But yeah, let's hear a little more about that sucking in school and your stories there. All those times you got suspended.
Yeah, so I got suspended way too many times for way too many dumb things. The best one, I don't know. My mother still struggles with this one. Like, she cringes every time she hears me tell this. I had a friend who stole some rubber cement at school, and he asked me to hold it for him. So I stuck it in my backpack. I remember feeling guilty all day long because I knew he stole it and I knew what I was doing. As the school day ended, we were riding the bus home, and he's like, "Hey, man, you got that rubber cement?" And so I gave it to him, and another one of our friends happened to have a lighter, and he's like, "Hey, let's light this thing on fire." And if any of you adults have not done this, now is the no, just joking. Don't do this. Don't do it at home. Don't do it if you're an adult. Don't do it if you're a student. We lit this thing on fire, and rubber cement is highly flammable, and it just went like you could hear it ignite. And so we tried to put the lid back on, and my friend tried to throw it out the window, and it was early, like late spring, like towards the end of the school year. And he happened to hit the little metal bar in between the windows. And luckily, we were the last few kids on the bus, but it bounced off that bar. The lid wasn't on all the way. It splattered flaming rubber cement all over the back of the bus. We had to pay to reupholster the seats. It was just so bad. We all got well, the kid that lit it, he got safe schooled, which now being a principal, like I handle discipline so differently. But we all got suspended. We all got in trouble. Like that stayed with me forever. Like I remember going in when I realized that I was kind of, oh, that's when I accepted other people's beliefs that I was a bad kid. And I can't remember what grade that was in, probably seventh or eighth. But that, like, from that moment on, the teachers all knew that I was a bad kid. And my parents thought that I was a bad kid. Like, before, they're like, okay, he's lazy and he struggles in school. And now he's an arsonist trying to burn a school bus down. And that experience has helped me more than any other that I can think of. Like when I look back and I remember just how disappointed the principal was, my mom, like meeting in that office, and my mother was crying. Like I thought maybe someone had died and I didn't know it yet.
Oh,
And
wow.
just how awful that was that I did this on top of someone dying. And then I found out, no, she's bawling because of you. And the reason I say that's kind of changed me and influenced me, it the dots really connected when I was a principal and I had to suspend a kid for something relatively serious, but not too bad. Like he was smoking marijuana in the bathroom, and his parents just came unglued and they were swearing at him and they're like, "What is wrong with you?" And I had to jump in and I had to say, "Hey, time out here. Nothing has gone wrong. This isn't the end of the world. Like I got suspended when I was a kid and I turned out great. I think everyone should get suspended." And the parents, like I don't really like don't if I don't know if you have any kids watching this. I don't want any teenagers to be like, "Hey, Mr. Pugh said I should get suspended." But parents, if your kids do get suspended, realize it's not the end of the world. And really, it can be an experience to build on and to grow and become stronger from. And so that's half the reason I went into education. I never saw myself being a principal. I just kind of fell into that. And the good that I was able to bring was that I experienced being the bad kid. And the problem with that was that I gave up on myself and I didn't believe in myself. And so my number one job now as a life coach and when I was a principal was to help kids and parents who have maybe given up hope to find that hope again and to realize like don't try and avoid the struggles and don't push them away. Embrace them. It's kind of like going to the gym. We would never go to the gym and just plop down and watch a movie or something. Like, we go there to be pushed. We go there to sweat. We go there to work hard. And the reality is, it's that struggle that makes us stronger. And in life, our daily struggles are the things that make us stronger. They're the things that prepare us for our ideal future. And
Yeah.
keeping the perspective, like, I had no idea that I would ever be a principal, but that event 20 some odd years ago had a positive impact on me. And so,
We need to struggle. We need to fail. Now, there are certainly degrees to which we want to let our kids fail. There might be certain failures perhaps we don't want them to experience. But if we take all of the struggles and failures away of our kids, from our kids, what do you think is going to happen when they're, older teens or adults on their own and suddenly they screw up?
yeah.
Like, they need to learn how to fail so that they can learn from it and keep moving forward.
And I think as parents, we need to be prepared mentally and emotionally so that in the event, like you had mentioned, like, yeah, maybe there are some struggles that we do want to save our kids from. But as a coach, I've worked with parents that are just devastated because their child has gotten into drugs or pornography, or like, it seems like we all conceptually are like, yeah, we need to let our kids struggle. We need to do, like, don't make their path too easy. But then we have certain things like, oh, but let's not let them struggle with drugs or pornography. And I'm all for safeguarding your children and teaching them and preventing unnecessary struggle. Like, you don't want to take your kids out and get them high or something. But in the event that that does happen, as a parent, understand the perspective. It isn't the end of the world unless you make it the end of the world. And it isn't the worst thing to have ever happened. And ultimately, a lot of the work that I do with parents is helping them connect with their teenager right where they are, in spite of all the troubles, in spite of drug addiction or anything else. Understanding that, okay, I can connect with them and I can put this into perspective, and I can trust that this struggle, even though it's way more severe than anything I ever wanted my teen to experience, I can trust that they can bounce back from this. This is for their good.
Yeah, and I love the way you use the exact terminology that I've been using lately is you have to meet your kids where they are. You
Yeah.
can't say to them, "Oh, well, you have to meet me halfway," or "You have to do X, Y, and Z for me to do A, B, and C." Like, your job as the adult is to meet your kids where they are and to bring them to where they need to go. If
Yeah.
you're asking them to just, meet you halfway, well, what if they don't have the skills to get there? Even if you gave them all the skills and you think you gave them all the skills, did your kids really take it in? Like, you don't know what was happening in that moment to create that struggle or that failure or the series of struggles. Um, and it really is our job to take our kids where they need to go and from wherever they are. And I believe that's the job of teachers as well in the school system. Like, I've heard constantly in IEP meetings, well, the kid needs to meet me halfway, or they have to, help us out a little bit here. And it's our job to figure out how to get them there.
Yeah. And I was the one teacher that would go to all these IEP meetings because I know how important they were. I'm one of the few teachers who's ever been on the other side and been the student in that IEP meeting. And the one thing where you talked about, like, doing our part, I always tell parents and teachers and even the teens that I work with, focus on what's within your control. And too many times as educators, as parents, we're putting so much of our focus into our teenager who's completely out of our control. Like, parents don't like to hear that. But I always like when parents tell me, like, well, I want them to do this. I'm like, okay, what would it take to physically make them do that? And sometimes it's like, duct taping them to a chair and strapping their eyeballs wide open. And like when we realize the extreme measures that we would have to go to control them, it's silly to even consider that we should control them. And so I think it's really empowering as an educator, as a parent, to focus on what's within our circle of control. And usually, like every single time, it'll have to do with us rather than our teenager. So rather than trying to change your teen, focus on what can I do? What can I do with this connection?
So let's use that idea to talk about what parents can do right now when their child is struggling with school resistance. We are right in the middle of coronavirus. Most of us are out of school. Parents are working from home. Kids are schooling from home. I mean, we never could have anticipated this. We can't change the school system overnight. I am all for pulling kids out of school. I'm all for homeschooling if that's what the family feels is right for them, but we can't just suddenly take, what we've known for kids being in school hours a day and suddenly transform it into packets or online and have, quality and equitable education. But that being said, since we are in this position of trying to do it, um, I I've talked with a lot of parents lately whose kids are just completely rejecting the idea that they should be doing schoolwork right now. In my mind, it's expected that kids are going to be experiencing some resistance. Schools are closed. When schools are closed, they think they shouldn't have to do schoolwork. Right or wrong doesn't really matter. That's just kind of what goes through their head. Add on the layers of stress that the parents are having right now, that the kids are having right now, and it's a recipe for disaster. Everyone's in like a state of nearly exploding all the time. And how can parents work with their kids who are kind of rejecting the schooling from home idea? That was a really long question with a lot of backstory. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. One thing I want to point out, a lot of parents are coming to me right now and they're like, oh, the coronavirus caused this problem or this. One thing I like to with existed before the coronavirus. The coronavirus just brought them to the surface. Most of the kids that don't want to do school didn't want to do it in the first place, and now they have a better excuse not to. And so I like to help parents understand like coronavirus didn't create a new problem with school. It just brought some old problems to the surface. On the flip side, I do like to point out some of the positive things that we're seeing, especially with education. I don't feel like education has changed much from when I went to school. Like this year's my 20-year reunion that just got canceled, but school has not changed much. When I talk to my parents, school hasn't changed much from when they went to school. And I think one awesome thing is that this is forcing schools to change, to do things differently. Now, having said that, change is hard, and being on the front lines is even harder. And so it's really hard to expect our students, our kids, our teachers, our parents to all of the sudden be like, okay, here's a new thing. We've got it 100%. So I do feel like it's important that maybe like if school's super important to you, yeah, let's do it. But don't let school take away from all the other opportunities that this has given us. In my own home, I have 4 kids. My oldest is 13. My youngest is 4. And my 13-year-old, like, he didn't want anything to do with his siblings. If he could have friends over, that's what he wanted to do, just hang out with other people. Because of this, my kids will go jump on the tramp, all 4 of them, for hours. I, I worry that parents and educators are focusing too much on school and they're losing out on valuable opportunities that our kids are going to remember this forever. And there are things that they could be learning now that they couldn't have learned before because they were stuck in a classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had so many conversations with parents lately about like just using the idea of, do you really think that every 5th grader or every 12th grader that's on graduation day has the exact same knowledge at the exact same time as all the other kids? Like our kids, for the most part, are going to be just fine without school for a couple weeks or a couple of months. I really feel for the families who rely more heavily on intensive services that schools provide.
Yeah.
And I do feel for those families desperately. But really, for the most part, our kids are going to be fine. Are they going to forget some stuff? Sure, but you know what? They forget some stuff over spring break and summer break, and we've all heard of the summer slide and whatever. Although now there's research coming out that shows that maybe learning opportunities are even better, more authentic, and better remembered in the summer, summer breaks than previously thought. But who knows? Um, but I keep saying we're going to be okay. Our kids are going to be okay. You don't have to learn day in, day out, and it's okay. There's so many other lessons that you can learn.
Yeah. And I think right now, with the trends that we're seeing in mental and emotional health and the struggles that, like, adults our age are struggling more than our parents, but the teenage generation right now is struggling more than any generation, like, data wise. And I think it's a good reminder that, okay, academics, as important as they are, our mental and emotional health are far more important. And I feel like our academic success has a limited overlap. Like, you can do well in academics, and like the overlap is minimal. Like, mostly that success is confined to academics. Whereas mental and emotional success, that has a huge overlap. If you can do some things to improve your mental health, your emotional health, your grades will go up, your performance in sports will improve. Like, the overlap is huge. And so right now, in this time where, like, we're all struggling, like, and not like in a bad way, like, coronavirus has definitely inconvenienced us. And we're so lucky to live in the country where we live, where it is more of an inconvenience than a life-threatening problem like in other countries. And so what I would invite parents and their teens to do is embrace this struggle, embrace this opportunity to really grow mentally and emotionally. Identify what is it about coronavirus that has you so scared, and really confront those fears, confront those worries. And if you can tackle that, that's way more valuable than maintaining grades in English or math.
I love what you said about how we really have to focus on our mental health and our physical health. If your mental health is not good, if you're flooded with feelings of fear, worry, anxiety, whatever it is you want to call these feelings that you're experiencing, your brain physiologically is not functioning in a way that's going to be accessible to academic learning anyway.
Yeah.
If you're truly experiencing anxiety, those thoughts are invading your working memory, and then retrieval and processing information and spitting it out like in an academic sense is next to impossible, because those thoughts really are there in your brain and you can't just get rid of them because it's time to do work.
Yeah.
It really is an opportunity to work on those mental health skills, those mindset skills, and the physical health skills, so that you can be accessible for academics or whatever it is later on.
And I think it's important to realize that our brain isn't doing anything wrong. Like, it's doing exactly what it's designed to do. Like, our ancestors lived to make children because their brain identified, oh, this is scary, let's avoid that. The problem is the world that we live in, like, we are inundated constantly with negativity, like scary things. And our brain is hardwired to identify all of these threats, and there's no way we can process all of them. And none of the threats are as imminent as they were for, like, cavemen. Like, their threats were like life and death. Our threats are like, oh, now I have to deal with my kids for the next few months because they won't be in school. And so understanding that nothing has gone wrong with your brain, like, we all struggle with mental, emotional, physical health, and some may struggle more than others, but it's not something that only a few people should worry about. But it is a matter of understanding why your brain does what it does, accepting that, and then being intentional about how you react to that.
Yeah, a perfect example, I'll get really vulnerable here and say, like, lately I've been reaching out for a lot of mindset help. I'm not worried about coronavirus per se. I mean, I don't let me say I'm enjoying my time. I'm spending my time wisely. I'm connecting with my family. Like the benefits are great. Um, but I'm really struggling with my mindset from a business perspective because right now I just feel called to help and to help for free and to help as much as I can while still, doing my family thing as much as possible as well. But I still need to live. I still need to sell my course, which isn't cheap, and I feel bad about it. But yet I know that it's the perfect time for people to take advantage of my course. It's for teenagers. Teenagers are home without a whole lot of academic pressures. Parents are home with them. It's a perfect time for this. Same with what you offer. But I still just feel sleazy about it because I know I know that life is really hard for a lot of people financially right now. And I've been reaching out, asking for mindset help from people around that issue. And then I feel really disingenuous because my course is largely mindset. I don't call it that, but my course is largely mindset, and it teaches teens how to kind of think differently. And I'm like, man, how can I be selling a mindset course if my mindset isn't right? And it makes me feel disingenuous. And I've just been stuck in this cycle of like, blah, what am I doing? Um, but I think you bring up a really good point is that we all struggle with this, and it's what we do with the struggle. Do
Yeah.
we shut down or do we find something to keep going with?
Yeah. And it's also the power of intentionally focusing on what serves you. Like you could completely shut down and focus on how bad it feels to charge people on this time. Or you can choose to focus on hey, and I'm offering all of this for free as well. This is just more intense for people who can afford it. Like you're not taking money from people who should be spending that on food and groceries. Like you're helping people who can afford the most high end of your help to help you be able to help everybody.
Yeah.
And really intentionally choosing, okay, this is how I'm going to think about something. Because our brains, they like to catastrophize and they like to go to the worst extreme and be like, you shouldn't charge anyone. When in reality, we can be like, okay, I see what my brain is naturally doing. Here's what I'm going to intentionally think, and here's how I'm going to practice along the way.
Yeah. It's all in the actions. Like you have these thoughts which are, normal, like you said, our brains are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're there to protect us. And then we have to choose how we react and act with those thoughts.
Yeah.
So what about for parents who like you said, are catastrophizing and they're being told by their schools, because I've heard this straight from the parents' mouths, that some parents are having to take attendance and report attendance for their kids, and they have to turn in work, and the work is graded, and they're worried their kids are going to fail because they were like borderline before, and now if they don't do the work, they're going to fail, and then if they fail, they'll be held back or might not graduate depending on the ages. Like my belief is if schools are closed for any length of time, I fully believe, but I don't know because I'm not in policy, that we just can't have equitable education this way overnight. And we're going to have to adopt some kind of no grading policy, or, we're not going to not let kids graduate because we were in a global crisis. But I don't know that, and I can't guarantee parents that. So how do we deal with the situations of we absolutely feel obligated to get this schoolwork done because we're worried about our kids failing, but my kid just doesn't want to do it, and it's a fight every day?
So I just want to point out one thing. Human beings are herd animals. And what that means is that we can read other people's emotions. We kind of get this group thinking, this group mentality. And then as individuals, oftentimes because we're herd animals, we feel pressured to just adopt that group thinking. Now, having said that, like, because we're humans and we catastrophize, that becomes group thinking as well. And one thing that I currently help parents on, like, don't become a part of the herd mentality, the general catastrophizing. Um, so what I like to do is help parents realize that they are empowered. They have more power now, or they've always had power, but like now is the time to take a stand and decide. Like, you can go to the school and you can say, hey, I appreciate what you're trying to do. I see what you're trying to do. This is what works for my family. Anyone who tells you that your kid won't graduate, they're doing all these things, like they might be trying to, but education, it used to be state level based, and now it is so up into the federal government. Like, no one knows what's going to happen. I hear some schools that are like, hey, we're done for the year, and if you were going to graduate, you're graduated. If you weren't going to, we'll get with you later. Like, no one knows. So don't buy into the group catastrophizing, and just, you, like, as human beings, we look for, I don't know, permission to do things a lot. So if you want permission, you guys have my permission. Do what works for your family.
You totally
And
have my permission to just
yeah,
screw school right now.
yeah, there you
If
go.
that's
So
what's going to work for you, do it. And I mean, easier for me to say because my kids aren't in this position, but if they don't graduate and they have to repeat school for a year, who cares? If a kid gets retained, who cares? I know there's a lot of evidence that like social that we don't want to retain because of social issues and whatever, but like we're in a crisis right now. You've just got to like do what's going to work for you. I don't think you can put it any other better way.
well, and I always use the example of like the Wizard of Oz, where they show, and the lion wants courage and the tin man wants a heart, and the wizard's like, okay, go get the broom from the witch, and they go do these scary things that take courage, and they do these things that take a brain, like, and then they come and they get the diploma. And I always ask people, like, is the diploma that important, or was the process that they did to get there? Trust the process that we're going through right now. It is so much more important than the piece of paper that you get at graduation. And for some of you parents or even teens out there, like, if graduation is that important, I invite you to come work with me. Like, let's identify, why is it so important? Because if that is taking up this space where it's the most important thing in your life, we can do a little bit of work around that, and we can identify other things that are more important, that are within your control. None of us can control the coronavirus. Like, I've read things that said we went into quarantine way too early without any guidelines on how to go in or how to come out, and we'll be this way for a year. I think that's extreme, but the message is the same. Like, none of us know exactly how this is going to play out. So rather than spending so much time focusing on something outside of our control, let's focus on what is within our control. Now is the perfect time to reconnect with your family. For one of my kids, it's been the perfect time to actually get caught up in school. He would not do anything in school. My wife's like, hey, we've got time. Let's go figure out math. And so they've bonded doing that. Like, a happy side note is, yeah, he's passing math now. But do what works for your family. Find out what is within your control and do that. Like, don't force your kids to do something that is going to ruin your relationship when you can do other things to improve your relationship that on the back end will help them do things that you would normally have to force them to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very well said. Kind of like front loading the time, you know. Um, so what are some things that parents can do to connect with their kids, particularly I think in that teen space is really important. I've seen so many posts going around Facebook like, what can I do with my teen because he's in bed all day, but all I see is activities with like bubbles.
Yeah. So I want to throw this out. When I was a principal, every year we would go do this retreat. We'd split our girls and our boys, and one day we'd take the girls up to the mountains. We'd go kayaking, fishing, all sorts of fun stuff. And then the next day we'd take the boys. There's a reason for that. Connect before you try and force your teens to do stuff. And this one is hard for parents. Like, they ask me all the time how to connect with their teens. And it seems like we want our teens to come up to our level to connect with us. And what I say is connect with your teen at their level. I know a lot of parents, like Fortnite used to be a bigger thing than it was. And I was a principal when it exploded and everyone loved it. And I would have parents that were like, Fortnite is the devil. It's the worst. It's ruining our kids. And I'm like, I kind of like it. Like, I play with my kid. I play with your kid. He's on there all night. Like, connect with your teens where they are. And it doesn't mean you have to go be great at Fortnite. Like, my Fortnite name was something like gonna die because my teenagers were like, you're going to be the first to die. Connect with them where they're at. Another thing that I found really powerful, um, get your teenagers out of their regular environment, get them out of their comfort zone. And if you want the biggest bang for your buck, you as an adult get out of your comfort zone at the same time. I don't know what that means for you. Like, now it would take a lot of creativity, but find a way. Get you and your teen out of your comfort zone. That really fosters a good ground to build a connection with. It
Yeah.
puts you and your teenager on the same footing. It puts you on the same level. And like, there's ways to do it. Use this opportunity to find ways to connect with your teens, uh, and connect on their level and be vulnerable with them.
Yeah, I was talking with someone the other day who was asking like, what can I do with my teen? I'm like, well, let them talk to you about something that they want to talk about. You
Yeah.
don't have to force what you want to talk about on them. Let them start off and ask questions. And if you don't know what to ask, then just keep trying. But if you approach it from you wanting to be interested in them instead of you pulling them to be interested in you, I think it's going to make a big difference.
Yeah, your teenager's not going to be interested in you. Like,
Yeah.
they're going to get to that same point that most of us got to, like 15, 20 years ago, where all of a sudden we appreciate mom and dad.
Right.
They're not there yet, but just trust that they'll get there.
Yeah.
Another thing that I've thought a lot about, like, parents, now that they're home with their teenagers, like, they want them to do more chores, more homework, more. We talked a little bit about motivation earlier and having the benefit. As a parent, up the ante. Like, maybe you're asking them to do more chores because they're home more. Motivate them and say, hey, you know what? I'll give you some extra time playing your Xbox or whatever. Like, don't expect more from your teenagers without you being willing to give them more of a reward. It's okay. Like, in education, so many people are so worried about extrinsic rewards. And I'm like, no, that is what our world is based on. Like, no one goes to work without a paycheck. No one, like, we're all looking for some reward. And yeah, some should be intrinsic, some should be extrinsic. But hey, if you want your team to do more school, more around the house, find ways to be more generous in motivating your teens.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I wrote something down that I wanted to ask you, and I don't remember what it is. I thought I wrote it down, but I don't see it on my paper. um, this has just been so valuable. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have, I mean, this whole thing has been full of advice, but do you have any particular words of advice for parents right now? Like the one thing you want them to walk away remembering?
Yeah, probably the one thing, most of your inner struggle is due to your own judgments. In fact, I'd just say most for safety. It's all of your struggle. When you judge that life should be happening another way, when you judge that your teenager should be more well behaved or doing better in school, these judgments are what cause inner turmoil. They're the things that cause breaks in our relationships. And so, the one thing I would invite you to do if you're struggling as a parent, look at the judgments that you're having. Maybe it's that your teen should get up at a certain time, or maybe it's that they should do what they're asked without arguing. Like, these are judgments. It's like having a real life argument. Anyone who's been in an argument knows that it sucks. And it doesn't matter if you're winning or losing the argument, arguing just doesn't feel great. So when we have these judgments, what we're doing is we're arguing with reality. And rather than connecting with your teenager where he is or where she is, you're having this argument and you're trying to connect with them where you want them to be. And so my number one piece of advice, drop the judgments and accept your teens for who they are, where they are, with whatever struggles they're struggling with.
That's so well put. Thank you.
Yeah.
Where can parents get in touch with you if they are interested in getting some help?
So I have a Facebook page. It's Ben Pugh Coaching. Also, my website is benpughcoaching.com. And you can schedule a time to either get coaching for yourself, for your teenager. And the link, I don't know if you want it, it's calendly.com/benpugh/mini. That will take you directly to my calendar. And I am always offering people free coaching sessions. Like, obviously I want you to work with me and I want you to pay me to work with me, and there's a ton of value in doing that. But at the same time, these free sessions, I have had so many people lately not sign with me and just be so grateful for the value that they got in the free session. And oftentimes, if I know I can help you quickly and get you a quick win, I'll give you an additional free session. So if you're struggling and you don't know where to turn, come to me. This free session, I promise it'll be worth it. If not, I'll give you your money that you didn't pay me. No. So just come take advantage. It's a free session. And then if you want to work with me after that, we can talk about that there on that call.
That sounds fabulous. Thank you. I will definitely make sure everyone who's listening knows that and spread the word. And thank you for being willing to hop on the phone and help parents out.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been a joy. It's been fun to discuss this with you, and I wish you the best.
Thanks. I feel like we could do this a lot more. We have a lot of things to talk about.
I know.
I felt like this had to get out like now,
Yeah.
So thanks again for your time. I really appreciate it. And I will make sure everyone knows where to find you.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.